What is going on, everybody, and welcome on into episode 221 of the Garage Beers podcast. With you, as always, I'm your host, Michael Keefe, joined on the east side of Cleveland, joined from the east side of Cleveland, on the porch on another beautiful night. Find him online at Garage Beers. Chad. It's Chad Meyer. What's up, Chad?
That was quick. Usually you do your whole little spiel.
I'm trying to get into something new first. I'm gonna try to do that first, and then the spiel.
Wow.
Nice. I want to get you involved earlier.
Nice.
The people want you, Chad.
Hey, Mike, I was thinking, what animals like out in nature do you think you could take? Or what would your plan of attack be?
Okay.
Right? Because I was just thinking, there's a trail behind my work today that I was running. I go in the back. Right as I'm entering the trail, I see a sign that says live coyotes back here. Please keep your dogs leashed. And I'm like, if I just saw one coyote, I mean, I think I could take it. Like I could take it and be just fine.
I think you could probably take two coyotes to be honest.
Like two coyotes. Or you go after the biggest coyote in the bunch, you take him down, and the rest of them are like little bitches. They're like, oh my God.
I don't know enough about coyotes to know if they get like crazy big in other parts of the world, but like here they're like mid-sized dogs. Like I feel like I could take a group of coyotes.
Right. And like,
because I'm just kicking and punching and like throwing them around.
Right. Because, because I got to thinking, like, say, like you're on your hike with your family in the woods someday or on a trail someday. And I don't know, you're the one that's going to be thrown to it. Right. You got to protect the family. So like, but I don't know, like, what's your plan if you go to like, if I don't know if like a bear comes out or like if you ever run into
well, that's a different story though.
Like a moose.
I can't take a bear. I can't take a bear.
But you got to have some sort of plan. You're going to send the family away.
Well, yeah, but if the bear decides to charge, I'm dead. I just die. That's as simple as it is. Do you remember The Revenant? Did you see The Revenant? That was unbelievable. That scene with Leo getting mauled. And I know everybody talks about the rules with, if it's a black bear, make yourself big and make noise. I would do that. But if the bear charges, I'm dead.
Well, sure. So, if it decides to attack you, yeah, sure.
The question is the question, what animals do I think I could take? Or is the question, what am I going to do? Because, again, I'm not afraid of coyotes.
I guess the more fun question, the better podcasting question is
that what we're doing here?
Huh? Yeah.
Is that what we do?
Is like if you're facing an animal that's bigger than you, because obviously we know we can take like a dog. Obviously know you can take smaller animals, but if a bigger animal approaches you, you got to have some sort of plan. Like what are you gonna do? Like if a deer, like a buck, decided to charge you, like what are you gonna do?
Oh man, that would be weird because I feel like a deer, I like inherently am not gonna be afraid, but then if a buck is just charging me, I'm gonna pee in my pants a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Like
I'm gonna panic.
Yeah, like I was thinking about this on my cool down walk today. I was like, you know what? I would like grab this thick stick and kind of take it out at its legs, like at the last second, try to sidestep it and take out its legs,
Game of Thrones style. Like,
yeah.
What's pissed me off about those shows? They never go for the guy on the horse. They take out the horse first.
Right.
What the horse do? That's just running.
What are you doing?
Look at Kenny Miller's like, bear spray. Well, yeah, obviously, if you've got bear spray.
But if you don't have bear spray on, right.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna try to think of the things that I know while also panicking, right? Like the video of that guy that was hiking the trail out west, and like a mountain lion came out because he got close to a mountain lion and her cubs.
Yeah,
you remember that video?
Yeah, I remember that video.
Lion, like followed his ass for like 10 minutes, and he just kept his cool the whole time though. Like, he just kind of slowly backed away. He never turned his back.
Yeah.
He just slowly backed away. And it was like, oh, that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would try to do that, but I also would panic.
You're supposed to yell at a bear too. Like you're supposed to be like, ah!
A black bear.
Yeah, a black bear.
If it's a brown bear, you're supposed to go down. You're supposed to.
Apparently the brown bears that I've seen videos of people yelling at brown bears and the brown bear went, nah, you know what? Nope, I'm going the other way.
Yeah. Well, again, I think most of the time they don't want anything to do with it. What's the worst? What's the one you would just crumple you if you came across?
Oh God. Probably a shark. Probably a shark.
Well, yeah.
Because I feel like, because I couldn't I couldn't. I run way faster than I swim.
You're out of your
like,
element.
I feel like I don't have any sort of fighting chance against a shark.
Yeah, you don't.
But like at least like a bear, maybe I can go hide behind trees, right? While it swats at me, something. You got to have a plan in place. You got to think on your feet here.
I love these conversations because I also think it's awesome that like though animals you don't think of are the ones that are most terrifying, right? You brought up a moose.
Yeah,
they do more damage than like the most dangerous animal in the world to humans is a hippo.
Yeah,
a hippo.
Right.
A hippo.
And apparently it's super fast in the water. Have you ever seen a hippo charging in the water?
Yeah, there was just a video recently of a hippo charging a boat. It's wild. It's wild.
Jesus Christ.
It's wild.
Apparently for a moose, though, they have no coordination. So if they charge you, they're just coming straight at you. Like they can't turn. So you just got to wait and you just go. And the moose just goes, Olay.
Expert moose matador, Chad Meyer, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what we're doing.
That's right.
You will notice today that our buddy Joe Whalen, again, is just prioritizing work. And apparently Joe only works with people that live so many time zones away that he can't make it for this.
Quitter.
So Joe working with people in the UK over there and not able to make it tonight. But Chad and I have got a great show planned for you here on the Garage Beers Podcast, episode 221, brought to you proudly on the OBR streaming network. The OBR is ramping the hell up right now. That's what's happening. It's getting locked in and it's ramping the hell up because we're getting close. We're getting close to training camp time for the Cleveland Browns, which means we're getting close to preseason time for the Cleveland Browns, which means, shockingly, we're getting damn close to Cleveland Browns football time. And that's the OBR's heyday. So get over to the OBR.com and hit and make sure you get a subscription to the OBR's website. And then, like our buddy Brad Ward has said on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, make sure you're subscribed and saying hi to everybody. Get with us in the chat. Get with us in the comments tonight. We are here to have a really good time. And while you're over there doing all that stuff with the OBR, make sure you're following everything that we are doing on Garage Beers on the socials, at the Garage Beers on all the socials everywhere. And like I said, Chad, we got a fun show.
What if I only subscribe and don't like? Does that matter?
It's problematic. It's problematic. Don't do that.
Right.
Like and subscribe.
All right.
There's a lot of fun stuff to talk about tonight. We're going to get to that a little bit later. There was a wild situation at the Home Run Derby last night that I want to talk about. There's just some kind of fun stuff going on. And so we're going to have kind of a fun end of the show. But we're going to have a great beginning to the show because in just a little bit, we did an interview with former Cleveland Indians first baseman Ben Broussard. And, man, it's great. I mean, if you want some nostalgia, make sure you tune in and make sure you stick around for this interview with Ben Broussard. He tells all kinds of great stories about his time with those early to mid-2000s Cleveland Indians teams that, and again, you'll hear it on the interview, but, man, I forgot that they were good a lot. They were good a lot. You just didn't know it because of some weird reasons like 2005. So anyways, we'll dive into all that with Ben Broussard here in just a little bit, but we can't dive into any of that before we kick us off with our favorite segment of the week. And we've got a sponsor for our favorite segment of the week this week, our Garage Beers of the Week, sponsored by the Cleveland Tint Company. Born and raised in Cleveland, the Cleveland Tint Company is the #1 place in Cleveland for your commercial, residential, or automotive window tinting needs. Listen, we're all trying to figure out ways to save money right now. We're all trying to pinch some pennies right now. Pinch some pennies. Wow, that's what I was going for. Especially this time of the year, as the sun is beating out there. It's hot as balls these last couple days. Forces your AC to work overtime. Your electric bill is through the roof. We all know how it goes. That's where Cleveland Tint Company comes in.
Our birds' heads are falling off.
Yeah, right. At your home, your business, Cleveland Tint Company brings you the best product and service you can find in all of Northeast Ohio, and nobody does car window tinting better. The company with the only lifetime warranty in Cleveland, my buddy Paulie and the Cleveland Tint Company 100% stands behind their work. So give Paulie a call today, 440-655-3213, or go to clevelandtint.com for more information. And now it's time for Garage Beers of the Week. So Chad, lead us off.
Well, Mike, I know you gave me a little bit of shit, but I'm diving into the Delaware beers here. I know you gave me a little bit of shit, because I always, go to Dogfish Head, bring Dogfish Head home. And I get it. I took it like a man. But at this time, I did not go to Dogfish Head.
Ooh.
I did not go to Dogfish Head at all.
Not at all.
But I did go to several beer stores and mulled over this.
Okay.
And if there's one Dogfish Head beer I cannot come back here without, it is definitely the Worldwide Stout.
Oh, it's the best.
So it's so delicious. It's so strong. It's so heavy. I can't come back without a bottle. And luckily, the beer store I went to, you can buy single bottles of it. So I only got one. But there it is, right there.
Oh my gosh, look at it. And what is it? 17%?
Yeah, well, they say that's what I love about Dogfish Head too, is it gives you a range. It says this beer ages well. So it usually comes out between 17 and 23%.
Woo!
It's somewhere in between there, Mike. It's somewhere in between there. So
baby.
Here we are.
Oh, baby.
Here we are.
All right. Worldwide Stout for the win from Chad tonight. Chad, I just got back literally an hour and a half ago. I've been in Hocking Hills the last couple of days. I had a work meeting down there. Went down on Sunday. And listen, I'm down there. We played golf in Zanesville. I played the best golf I think I've ever played in my whole life. I felt good about myself. We're in that we're in that Southeast Ohio area. And for me, when you're down in that area on my way in from Zanesville over to Hocking Hills, there's one brewery you gotta stop and get beer at. There's one brewery that represents more than any other brewery from that Southeast Ohio. It's Jackie O's.
Let's go.
Jackie O's, just a tremendous brewery down in Athens. You can't really see this can, but it's bats. It's bats.
Oh, okay.
Rain.
Bats. Halloween scene.
Rainy bats.
Yeah.
Rainy bats. Which doesn't really, I don't think, go with the beer, but this is called Endless Echoes. It's a hazy IPA.
Of course.
Look at that guy.
Look at that juiciness.
It's juicy. Yeah, it's voluptuous.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Sounds sexy.
It is a very sexy beer.
Yeah.
It is a gorgeously sexy beer. It will not get me wrecked nearly as fast as your beer will get you wrecked.
Right.
As I believe this one's like 7.5%.
Okay. And boom.
But to be honest with you, Chad, I think this is one of these IPAs that you would drink because it doesn't have a heavy flavor of anything. It's not bitter, but it's not like one of those super juicy, like crazy ones.
Yeah.
It's one that you could just sit outside and crush in the summer. It's a perfect summer crushable IPA beer. It's great.
Listen, breaking news. I've been trying more hazy IPAs lately, and I've come to like hazy IPAs.
I figured.
It's breaking news. West Coast IPAs can still take a walk. All West Coast IPAs should be thrown on an island and just blown up to smithereens. But hazy IPAs, juicy hazy IPAs are I'm coming around. I'm coming around on them.
I love our boy Brad Ward. When I was talking about the Worldwide Stout and you brought up 17 to 23%, just a great reaction here. Just a straight holy crap.
That's why I only get one, Brad. That's all because that's all I need. That's all I need. I grab one bottle. That's all you need.
One straight holy crap. Those are our garage beers. Tell us what you're drinking in the comments and we'll flash it up on the screen. We'll talk about it too. And again, we did record this interview with Ben Broussard. So we hope you love it. We're going to send it off to that in just a minute. But then Chad and I will be back after the interview with Ben. And again, we got a lot of stuff that we want to talk about. So make sure you stay tuned for the interview with Ben and then hang out with us afterwards. And if you don't have a beer, go grab one. And we're going to send it off now. Enjoy this interview with former Cleveland Indians first baseman Ben Broussard. All right, we're really excited to be joined here on Garage Beers, episode 220, by an amazing special guest, a blast from the past here in Cleveland, a guy that spent several seasons with the Cleveland Indians in the early 2000s, and a guy that, I don't know. We'll have to talk about it. But in my head, Chad, when you said we were having our special guest tonight, the first thing that came to my mind, I had two words came into my mind when you told me we had the special guest, and they were Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Ben Broussard joins us on Garage Beers. Ben, welcome into the Garage Beers podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Super excited to be back.
So Ben, I thought it was in my head for a minute, to be honest with you, because when I think of your time, especially with the Indians back in the early 2000s, when I think of your time, the only thing I think about are Grand Slams. I remember you just every time you would come up with the bases loaded, it felt like you hit a grand slam. So I thought, man, maybe it's in my head. Maybe it's just a thing that was in my head. Maybe that's just how I remember Ben Broussard. But then, Ben, I pulled up your information. And when you were with the Indians, you hit 650 with the bases loaded, and you had like 1,000 grand slams. It's a very true thing. What happened with you when the bases were loaded? Did you just lock in, man? What happened there?
No, every day, part of my routine would, the guys would go in the cage, and I had guys flip to me, and I'd take batting practice, and then always at the end of my day, before I'd go out on the field, I'd always do with the bases loaded. I'd do situations. I just was constantly like, got second, third, 2 outs. I got 2 strikes, but I always spent time with the bases loaded, and I never knew until like later at the end of my career, I look back, and it's something that I talk with guys all the time about with hitting. It's like, it's really important to put yourself in those situations and also just like see yourself having success in it, so that when you get in there, it doesn't really feel any different.
Now I want to take it back here. Ben. I mean, you were originally drafted by the Reds in the second round, and it wasn't long before you were traded to the Indians. I'm just curious how your process was. I mean, was it, the Reds the whole time and already getting traded? Like, where were you when you got traded to the Indians and had to move? I mean, that had to have been like, whoa, like it's just a shock to you.
The Reds had a guy that was pretty good named Sean Casey there. So
that guy, yeah.
The mayor.
National League team, so there wasn't the DH. And so, when he signed his long-term deal and I was in AAA, and I was right at that point of being ready for the major leagues. Cleveland, it was the perfect timing for me to come in with Cleveland. They're doing a rebuild. And, I'll never forget, I got traded and I showed up in Buffalo, and my roommate was Cliff Lee. Me and him sat and talked. To this day, me and Cliff are really good friends. And we always laugh about that because we didn't know anybody, and, we're both coming from different organizations, but it was great. That was the perfect spot for us because we were able to kind of go through all the bumps and bruises of the big leagues, and we had a young group together, and it was like a family. And man, those are the best memories I think I have of my career was in Cleveland.
Man, I don't know what happens as we get older and we hit certain numbers in age. I was thinking of your career in Cleveland. I'm thinking it feels like it was like 10 years ago. That's 22 years ago that you
Don't make
debuted.
me feel old, dude.
I know.
Feel that old.
22 years ago, you made your debut with the Cleveland Indians, man. I think the coolest part of your early career with the Indians, not many guys can say what you can say. Not many guys can say this, period. But we talked about your grand slam. Your first ever home run, though. Your first ever home run with the Cleveland Indians comes off a guy named Pedro Martinez.
Yeah.
As you see the ball go over the fence and you're rounding the bases, what's happening in your head right there? What's happening in your head?
It was the craziest story because, I was playing left field in Fenway. I just got over, and I was really a first baseman at that time. I had a little bit of time in the outfield, and I remember I just got to the team, and they were like, I met them in Montreal, and they were like, we're going to Boston, and you're going to play left field. And I was like, okay. And, I didn't process what that meant, and I showed going, and I just felt like I was playing shortstop in left field because they have this huge green monster, and I did all this early work, and then I did early hitting with Jim Thome, and he takes me in the cage, and everything's just happening so fast. And then I sit down, and Eddie Murray's my hitting coach, which is like, oh my gosh, Eddie Murray's my hitting coach, and he says we got to talk about who's pitching tonight. I hadn't even thought about that, and he's like, he just looks at me and he goes, best fastball, best curveball, best slider, best up in the game. And I'm like, what? And I'm just staring at the green monster in the dugout. And all of a sudden, like somebody tugs on my shorts that I was wearing. And it's Jim Thome. And he looks at me and he's like, rookie, look for the heater. And I was like, thank you. I can hit a fastball. And, that's something that I could hit. And so when I went into that game, I just really focused on what I knew I could do. And I think it was my second at bat against Pedro. He gave me a fastball middle in, and I hit it over. And I remember I just floated around the bases, and I was like, I don't even remember my feet hitting, and then I come home and I go out to the field, and I'm thinking finally these fans are going to shut up, and they just totally got louder, and they're like, don't think just because you hit a home run that you're a good left fielder, Broussard. And I'm like, this isn't like AAA. And so the best part of the story is I walk up there in my next at bat, clueless of what's about to happen, and Pedro throws it 100 right at my ear. I barely get out of the way. My helmet goes flying off. I'm seeing stars. I'm getting up. I'm like, what just happened? And I remember Veritek sitting there looking at me, waiting for me to look at Pedro. And I turn around and look at Pedro, and he's like at the cut of the grass, like 10 feet away from me. He gets the ball from Veritek. He spits on the ground, kicks the ground, and walks back to the mat. I remember I'm like, oh my God, he did that on purpose. And so then he throws me a curveball middle in next pitch, and I like buckle like it's a left-handed curveball. I didn't swing, he punched me out 2 pitches later. He cusses me off the field. And I remember I like sat down, I'm sitting in the dugout, and Eddie Murray's like, did you learn something today? And I'm like, no, what did I learn? I don't know. And he's like, you take a veteran deep and they're going to let you know.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, 5 homers later, I can't remember. We're playing the Yankees, my first at bat. Roger Clemens is pitching, 2 guys on base, and he tries to sneak a first pitch fastball. I swing and hit a home run. And I mean, right at contact, all I'm thinking about is how in the world am I going to get out of the way of this bowling ball that he's throwing, Sorry, I took you deep. I was really just trying to hit it hard, because that's how you felt back then, because guys hit you for any reason at all. Like if you like just, I was a rookie, so I got hit all the time in the beginning, and they wanted to see how I responded to it. And it was just kind of a rite of passage, and, your team would have your back, and it was a really cool thing. And so I always tell that story when I talk to guys about like mental skills and like being I talked to him about Roger Clemens, and I talked to him about Pedro. Oh yeah, and by the way, the next at bat when I came up against Roger Clemens, first pitch right at my head. Even trying to hit. He was so mad because the umpire. I remember him and the umpire started going at it because he goes right at my head. I get out of the way. The umpire's like, "That's enough, Rocket," and I'm like, "Oh my God!" The umpires call him Rocket. And
yeah, right.
That's enough, Rocket. Oh, God.
If I want to go inside on a rookie, I can. And they get in this huge fight, and then luckily he like walks me. But that was kind of like my first year to big leagues. You're just kind of weaving through it, trying to talk to everybody you can about like, how to slow the game down, how to do things right. And that, that's what I always talk about with guys when I'm talking to them about, having like that alpha mindset, because you're either the predator or you're the prey, period. And it happens over and over in a game. Like I'm talking a million times in the game, you have a moment where you have to, I call it the wolf or the rabbit. You've got to kind of ask yourself, like, who am I right now? If you're up there scared or intimidated, you're the rabbit. Or you make an error and you don't want the next ball hit at you, you're a rabbit. Instead, you gotta like train yourself to think that way. And so it's funny because I'm still like that today when I play pickleball or anything, I'm super competitive. And it doesn't matter if the people are 75 years old. I'm trying to bury it, and win the game. And it's just something you can't unlearn after you go through it.
I want to see a close-up. I want to see a close-up video of your face right after you make contact with that Roger Clemens fastball. And I think maybe the only time in history that that ball's sailing through the air and you're just like, no, don't go out.
Don't get excited. And like when I got in there, it was like dodgeball in junior high. I was just in the back of the box. I knew I could get out of the way, but man, those guys were just really, there's a reason they were the best. And it was definitely because they had a presence on the mound. They threw strikes and they knew how to command and they knew how to intimidate a little bit.
Now I want you to elaborate on something, because you mentioned, about, going against all these star pitchers, Pedro, Roger, kind of just a real rookie initiation there. But you in your own clubhouse, you had some stars in there, because you came in right at the tail end of those great 90s teams, right? I believe it was Omar's last year. Tommy was still there. What was it like walking into a clubhouse with those type of guys in there?
Oh, they were amazing. You could just lean on them. They would ask you out. I've got a great Omar story. I'm playing first base for Omar, and he throws a ball in the dirt. It's a tough pick, and he never missed. His feet were always in the right spot. Every hop was a good hop for him. And I remember he threw it, and it hit right on the cut of the grass. So it was like one of those that just really bounced weird. And I caught it right on the end of my glove, and I pulled it up, and it like snowed out of my glove, and it came out of the glove. And so I look up, and I didn't even think anything about it. And later, I got the error, not Omar, even though it was in the dirt, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm a rookie, and, I should have had it. That's how I felt. And I remember we were going to San Francisco, and Omar comes up to me like as I'm getting dressed, and he said, "Hey, I'm taking you out to dinner tonight." And I'm like, wow, Omar's asking me to go out to dinner? Yeah. So we go out and we have this amazing dinner, and I get to Omar. And then at the end of the dinner, I'm like, Omar, like, why are you taking me out to dinner? And he's like, because you took my error. And I was like, Omar, I'll take your error any day to hang out.
Yeah, right.
Fan of it, you know? And it really was. I mean, I should have had that pick. But later on, like we got to be really good friends, me and Omar, and we would always laugh about those stories, about like how, like, just how it all kind of started. And guys didn't, like, when I tell guys those stories, they don't always believe me. But then there was just like one time where I was working with the White Sox and player development, and I was telling a bunch of guys some Omar stories. And, there's always the guy that's like, doesn't believe you, or he's a critic or whatever. And so he comes up in front of everybody. And he's like, dude, I don't believe this story. And I'm like, I don't care if you don't believe this story. Cause I said, I don't like think of stories to make up to try to impress you, Right. So we whatever. And it's like a week or two later, we're playing the Angels, and lo and behold, Omar Vizquel's like the roving, like, infield coordinator. And so and Omar comes running up to me with all those guys there, and he gives me, like, he jumps on my back, like, I'm like carrying him around, and like we're embracing, and all the guys are looking at me like, dude, you really do know Omar. And then Omar's like, guys, I got to tell you the funniest story. The exact story that I was telling him when the guy, says, I don't believe it. And so then the guy looks at me and goes, all right, my bad. And I'm like, all right, cool. So then I got a lot of respect with those guys, because they knew, like, that's what I do, man. I love telling stories and trying to use those stories to kind of encourage guys to, like, be better. And that was one of the times when the guy called me out, and then, he got kind of put in his place.
Man, Chad brought it up there for a minute, as a blossoming young first baseman, that you weren't going to play first base in Cleveland when you first came up, because they had a guy there. They had a guy there who, by the way, that 2002 year was, I believe, the year Jim Thome hit 52 bombs, right? Yeah. And as a guy that's coming up trying to break in, and you're a first baseman and all that, just like, as you're watching a guy do that, have just a really special season like that, what's going through your head? What are you learning from Jim Thome? And really, do you ever watch him and go, like, the ball just is never going to come off my bat the way it comes off hit? Are there guys like that where it's just the ball just comes off their bat different?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, the ball sounded different. He used a huge bat too, and I mean, he swung. He loved to hit. I remember, like, when I first got there, I got to do early work with him every day, and I would go on the field, and we would just take batting practice, and he would just be like, one of his things that he liked to do is, he'd go in the cage, and he would hit line drives in the cage to kind of get warmed up. And then when we go out on the field, it was like he practiced hitting bombs. Basically, for him to feel good, he needed to feel like he was hitting it in the upper deck. So that was all, like, early work was for him. And so then I'm in his group, and I got Eddie Murray that's telling me, hey, it's not about hitting home runs. And I say the same thing to guys all the time, when I'm talking to him about hitting. It's like, you want to hit line drives because those are home runs in the game. And I'm like, well, then why do you keep putting me in Jim Thome's group? Because, like, 6 out in the upper deck, and I'm getting in there, I'm not trying to hit a line drive to left field. I'm trying to go deep, And so I always laugh about that, because when I was with the White Sox, Thome was over there also. He's a special assistant. And so we talked a lot about, when I was a young player, and just, kind of how I would wear him out and everybody out. I wore everybody out. I was just one of those kind of guys that asked lots of questions. And, it was Eddie Murray that gave me the best advice ever. When he got tired of me asking him how to slow the game down, he was like, you play the best position on the field to find that out. And I remember I was like, what? And he said, ask the best player on the other team, and I guarantee you they'll talk to you about it. And I remember playing the Red Sox. I go to first base. I'm at first base. Manny Ramirez is at first base now with the Red Sox. And I asked Manny Ramirez, hey, man, how do you slow the game down? And he says, hey, meet me in the cage tomorrow at 1:00. And I'm like, is this like a trick? Am I about to get play? I didn't believe it. I didn't tell anybody. I show up the next day. Manny's in the cage. He sits down with me for like 45 minutes, and he just goes through his routine. I'm just watching him hit. He's like, hey, come watch me, take batting practice. We do all this stuff. And he's just kind of telling me, this is how the best do it, And then he says, one thing that was really interesting about Manny that a lot of people don't give him credit for is he was one of the smartest guys on the field when it came to, like, hitting stuff. He would spend like 45 minutes, an hour every day just going through all our pitchers, watching how they pitch him. And I remember he looks at me and he goes, yeah, your starter tonight. I don't even remember who the guy was. He goes, he never gives me a fastball to hit. He always nibbles with his fastball, but he leaves me a slider. He said, tonight I'm going to get the slider up and I won't miss. And I was like, is this another one of those tests? Am I supposed to go tell the pitcher, you know? Well, I don't
Are
tell
you Shooter McGavin telling me to meet you on the 9th green at 9 or like what?
That's what it felt like, totally.
Yeah.
I watched Manny go and do exactly that. He goes up his first AB. He does the ball. He fouls a couple balls off. It's 2-2. The guy leaves the slider up. I mean, he hits it up like left field, like 3/4 up the stands, you know. He takes this big wide turn at first base and he winks at me as he's going by, you know. And so he was the best guy for me to talk to, because then after that, I started asking every guy that year. I mean, I got to talk to some amazing hitters, but the thing that I noticed is they all did the same thing. They all thought the same way. They had a routine. They believed in it. And they also had that like alpha mindset that I was talking about. And so it was great though, man, watching Manny. He would always come up to me and talk to me after about it. And I mean, I don't think it always works out that for him, obviously, but man, on that one, he totally nailed it.
Man, that transition from year 1 to year 2 in your career, because you didn't spend the full year in 2002 up with the big club, and you went back and forth a little bit. Oh, well, hold on, time out. I was going to transition to your second year because it's a pretty wild transition from a roster perspective. But we can't go off of 2002. You were starting in left field. You started the game in left field. You know what I'm going to ask you about, because in 2002 there's one game that everybody's going to want to talk about, and that is July 14th, seared into my brain, the Cleveland Indians and the New York Yankees, and it's the Bill Selby. It's why Bill Selby, anybody of a certain age in the city of Cleveland.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can tell you one other thing Bill Selby ever did with the Indians, and he's probably a great dude. I don't know that I can tell you one other thing, but the grand slam off Mariano Rivera in a game that really didn't mean anything. But the grand slam off Mariano Rivera, talk about just being in the dugout when that happened, talking about being on the team. What was the celebration like afterwards? Like, I would imagine you guys were going nuts.
Just like you said, Bill Selby is one of those guys that like everybody loved him. He was an awesome and he was basically there for everybody at all times. You know, he was there for me a lot. We played winter ball together in Mexico. So he was like, I got to know him pretty good. And one thing about Bill Selby is he had a really nice short swing. Like he hit the ball inside really well. And so it played perfect for how Mariano was pitching him, you know. But even like facing Mariano, you know exactly what he's going to do to you. And you're just like, you're kind of sad because you know he's going to blow it. You know, you're like looking at your bat and you're like, man, this bat's been really good. I'm going to use this other bat because there's nothing I can do, because it was a cutter, but it would cut and like banana up and in, and he could he could so pinpoint it. And it looked like he was playing catch on the mound. Like it was just like standing straight up, and he just like, there you go. And you're just like, and it, you know, it had like that kind of like halfway, it was like a slingshot. It'd get about like halfway to the plate, and then it would just like hit another gear, you know, and it was just effortless. So when you saw someone that had that kind of success, we were all excited about it.
Man, you talk about the psychology that you're working on now. I mean, it's
yeah.
I don't know, how do you go into an at bat like that against, you know, a Pedro Martinez, a Roger Clemens, or a Mariano Rivera, where you know that they know what you're going to do, they're going to do to you, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like even like in today's game, that's kind of the thing. Some of the hurdles that we go into with a lot of hitters is we have a lot of information, and guys it's real easy to get distracted and start thinking about the wrong thing. So I really try to help guys like stay on the offensive mindset. So I try to remind them, like, where do you do damage? What do you do well? Because that's what I would do. I would look at kind of like Tommy told me when I went up there against Pedro, you know, look for the heater. Where do I want the heater? Because, you know, if I go back and look at that pitch that I hit off of Pedro, it probably caught like a third of the inside corner. You know, he didn't hit the spot like he thought he would. But if I was up there worrying about his curveball or his changeup at that time, I would not have been able to hit that. So I went up there and just tried to focus on what I could do well. And so that's really what I do with a lot of hitters, is I just try to always refocus them and turn them back to like, man, you're a beast. You crush this ball. Like, let's go up there. Let's work on hunting this ball. You know, I always say we're hunting. And then when you get 2 strikes, it's something different. But like, until you got 2 strikes, I'm always, you know, it's like I talk with pitchers and I talk with hitters, and I'm telling them the same thing. You know, I'm like, you know, you're the alpha and they're the prey. And then when I've got like a pitcher and a hitter and they're both sitting there, they're kind of both looking at me like, wait a minute, I thought I was the alpha. And I'm like, yeah, that's my job, is to try to help you guys. Like, you know, hopefully you don't have to play each other, but that's what's the beauty of baseball, is guys both think they're the best and they're going at it. And there's just so much going on that nobody really in the stands can see. You know, there could be something from, you know, weeks and weeks ago, or I remember later in my career, we've always played in the White Sox, and Ozzie Guillen's the manager. And I would always have to face this left-handed guy, Neil Kotz, or he threw really hard, and he kind of owned me, or I just didn't have a lot of success off of him. And I remember it was like, it might have been 2005. Yeah, it was 2005. It was the year they won the World Series.
Yeah.
Maybe middle of the year, we're playing the White Sox, and I got a 3-0 count, and they would let me swing 3-0 a lot. And I'm like, man, if he gives me my pitch, I'm swinging. And so sure enough, we're in Chicago. I get a fastball out over the plate, and I hit a home run, like I think it was center field, run around the bases. We're talking 2.5 months later. It's the end of the season, last like series against Chicago. And I'm coming up to the plate, 2 outs, nobody on. All of a sudden, Ozzie Guillen, I mean, the game's out of hand. Like Neil's just getting some work in or whatever. All of a sudden, Ozzie calls timeout. He runs out there and he goes to talk to Neil, and I'm like kind of watching what he's saying, and I see what he says, and he's like, hit this guy. Like, I saw him say that. And I'm like, no way, he just told him to hit me, you know? Sure enough, Neil comes up, first pitch, buries it in my ribs, you know? And I'm like, it killed me. I run to first base, and I never forgot it. So then, like, fast forward towards the end of my career, I think it's, 2009 now. I'm in spring training. The first day I see Ozzie Guillen, I'll walk up to him. He's like, I'm glad you're on our squad now. And I was like, Ozzie, I got to ask you something. I said, 2005, end of the season, you go out there and you talk to Neil Kotz. Did you tell him to hit me? And he's like, heck yeah, I told him to hit you. Why? Because I went 3. Yeah, because I wanted him to get his edge before the playoffs, and he needed to feel like he was in command. And I'm like, I respect that. You know, that's awesome. And I didn't we laughed about it. No big deal. But, you know, it's just funny. That was like 2 months later.
Yeah.
And Neil was mad. He was probably, I swung 3-0 because you're not supposed to swing 3-0. But I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get a hit no matter how I can. So I was just like laughing, thinking about it. Just like there's so many of those kind of things going on from years and years past, you know, and like good managers know that kind of stuff too. Like they know like a guy needs to, like he knew that Neil probably needed like to go out there and drill me and just feel like, yeah, I'm in command here, you know? And sure enough, he like came through for him huge in the playoffs, and they won the World Series.
So when I look at your career with the Indians, you obviously, as Chad kind of alluded to, you came in on the tail end of the 90s teams, right? Your first year, it's Tomey and Vizquel, and Ellis Burks is there, and Travis Fryman's playing third base, and you got those guys still out there. Your second year, most of those guys are gone. I think Ellis was still there, but Tomey's gone. Omar's gone shortly thereafter. And now we're talking about like Brandon Phillips and Josh Bard and Johnny Peralta's at shortstop now, and Casey Blake's at third base. And a guy that I think we have to ask you if you have any stories that are even possible to tell here. Roaming the outfield in center field is Milton Bradley. You were part of the Milton Bradley era of Cleveland Indians baseball. Man, I bet you have some Milton Bradley stories.
Man, he was so talented. It was amazing. Like when he would turn it on, and if he would, you know, he's kind of like one of those guys that he needed to play with a certain edge. And when he played with that edge, better watch out. You know, he's like on the edge of fighting people, and he's so good, you know, when he's like that. And so I remember I got to be pretty good friends with him. And part of my job was to like listen to him kind of go off sometimes and just be there for him. Like, you know, he's like, this guy did this and this guy did that. And I knew, I was like, all right, Milton's about to go and put a whooping on somebody because he's fired up. And he'd get mad and he'd just go out there and just like rip balls in the gap or get big hits, and watch him make these plays in center field. I mean, he was definitely one of the most talented dudes like I ever played with.
So you have this career, you're part of that first part, and then you go into kind of a rebuild situation with the Indians where all the old hats are gone and they're looking for young talent. And you start seeing these young guys come in. You mentioned Hafner came in as a young guy when you were there, and Victor Martinez came in as a young guy when you were there. Not that you weren't a young guy, because you were a young guy at the time too. The thing that I think of, it just bums me out because you had some great moments for the Indians, and you were a pretty steady player over the course of your career for the Indians. And then all of a sudden, 2006 rolls around, you're having a pretty decent year in 2006. You get shipped off to Seattle. So you're out there playing for the Mariners. And the very next year, you have to go through third place and fourth place and third place. And their ERA as a team the one year was like 7. And they couldn't put it together. And all of a sudden, the very next year, there's the Indians up 3-1 against Boston. When you're a player, just from a player person perspective, when you're watching that, you're like, man, 1 year ago I was there, and now they're making this run.
What the hell, guys?
Happy for those guys when that happened. I mean, just because I felt like I was part of that, even though I didn't get to be on that team. You know, that was the coolest thing to see it kind of come through. You know, I got to be there when Grady showed up for that first game, and you know, he didn't make the team out of spring training. Then I think it was like Juan Gonzalez made the team because he was making a comeback and he blew his hammy out on the first ball he hit. And then they called Grady up, and I got to watch him like just turn into the beast of a player he was. And so when you get to see those guys, you know, at that level, I don't know. I still felt like I was kind of an Indian at that time. So even though I was with Seattle, I wasn't sad about it. I was really just happy to see that these guys were where they should have been.
This is probably a silly, stupid question, but I'm just curious, right? So when someone gets traded, like when you got traded, I mean, what is that process like? What do you go through, like emotionally, and like basically have to uproot yourself, right? Like you're moving from one side of the country to the other. Like is you just get the call and like, hey, you've been traded, and then it's just immediately just go clear out your locker. You're on a plane to Seattle. Like, what is that like?
That one was a weird one because, you know, Eduardo Perez had been there in the beginning of the year with me, and we were kind of like the two-headed monster, they called us. And he would play first against lefties, and I would play against righties, and then I'd always go play defense later. And we got really close, and then he was traded to Seattle. And so then we're playing Seattle at home, and I got traded while we were playing Seattle to Seattle. I switched dugouts.
Oh.
Craziest thing. And then one of the things that Eduardo was amazing at that he taught me was he taught me a lot about being able to pick up like pitches and being able to see if a guy's tipping. And so I was really into that in 2006. And I had like a book of all the guys when they would tip their changeup or whatever, you know, their breaking ball. I could see things. And I remember there were some guys on my team that were, you know, pitchers are always real paranoid if they tip, and they would see me in the video room, you know, and I would have like split screens up with guys in slow motion trying to figure out like, oh, this guy holds his glove higher on a breaking ball. And this one time, you know, I had some of our guys up, and a guy walks by and he saw it, and he like tells some of the pitchers. And so then all the pitchers are kind of like, dude, do I tip my pitches? And I'm like, no, man, I'm not. Cause like one thing that Eduardo taught me is he's like, hey, if you do this, you've got to like not tell pitchers whenever you figure it out. You never know when you're going to get traded and be facing them. He said, it's different if we're like, you know, in the playoffs or something like that. But, you know, and it's cool because Eduardo learned from Pete Rose when he was a kid watching his dad. You know, so like, I'm like learning from this guy who was like a savant at this, you know? And so sure, our pitchers did it. And I remember it was Jake Westbrook was pitching that day, and I had something on Jake. And I knew when he was throwing his changeup, and he had a nasty cutter and a good sinker. And so if I could take his changeup out, it helped me like have a chance. And I think I got a knock off of him. And then we had this other bullpen guy, I couldn't remember, but he was one of the guys that was super paranoid because he threw a split, and I guess he knew that he had tipped that before. And so sure enough, he comes in like the 7th inning. You know, I'm on the other dugout. Now I'm a Mariner. I know the split's coming. And so like I'm just like, yeah, I'm looking for it up. Like Manny said, I'm not going to miss it. Sure enough, he gives me the split, leaves it up. I hit the home run, and I'm running around the bases, and he's like yelling at me. You know, he's so mad because he knew it was coming. You know? But that was the weirdest thing. But I guess getting back to your question, I would say like I was so close with those guys. They were like family. It almost felt like going through a divorce or something. You know, like trying to process that later. I had a hard time like in Seattle because when I went to Seattle, I'd never DH'd before, and now I'm DHing, and I was always a defender. That was something I really took pride in. And so it took me, you know, it was one of those really good learning experiences for me because like the next year I was a bench player that kind of like roved around and played everywhere, left, right, first, DH. And I think going through that in 06 is what helped me get through at 07, you know, like, and so I always tell that to guys when I'm working with them. I'm like, don't get caught up in your moment and your situation and and think, poor me, look at it like, all right, like, how can I learn to be a bench player in this situation? Or for me, like, how can I learn to be a better DH? Because, you know, it might extend my career a little bit.
So did you just stay in Seattle, get a hotel room, and they were like, yeah, we'll FedEx your stuff? Or like, what? Like, how did that?
Like, well, I think we had a little bit of time. So, like, you know, we have awesome clubhouse guys that are there. And so, like, you know, they move all your stuff, you know, like the wife and I had my kid. I had one kid at that time and one on the way. So, you know, we had one in Cleveland and one in Seattle. And that was tough, you know, being in Seattle because you're really far away. You don't realize that, but like that's a really hard commute for those guys. You know, every flight's like 4 hours, you feel like. And so I don't know. I remember I was excited about that opportunity because I felt like, you know, I was having a good year and I'd made some big strides, I guess, as far as being a little bit more consistent. And then, you know, I struggled in Seattle. And looking back, it would have been great if they would have waited to trade me, you know, but it's just how it is. You know, I think it definitely made me who I am. I definitely use that stuff now when I like work with people.
Man, I didn't mean to shortchange you before, by the way. I didn't mean to shortchange some of the teams. I forgot because of the way the season ended. I totally forgot that you guys won 93 games in 2005. Like, you guys were mashers in 2005. And the pitching was good. Cliff Lee, I think, was 18-5 in 05. I forgot how good of a season you guys had in 2005. So I had to come back and apologize for shortchanging some of those. You guys were great.
Know, that was a year for us because we had 7 games left, 8 games left of the season, and we were doing all the media stuff for the playoffs that year. And then we proceeded to go out and lose 7 in a row, and the Yankees slipped. And that was the biggest choke ever. That was so hard for our team because we fought our way back, you know, and even like, you know, talking with like Chicago when I was with the White Sox, and, you know, I had a couple times to talk with Jerry Ryan, the owner, and we would talk about that 05 year. And he just talked about how nerve wracking that was for them because they pretty much had it in the bag really early. The AL Central was theirs. And then all of a sudden we just came roaring back, you know, and then obviously they put us down at the end and we weren't able to get in. But I would, you know, it'd have been interesting if we'd have got in the playoffs because I felt like we were this dangerous, like unpredictable young team, you know, and no one knew like what team are we playing today? Are we playing the young guys or are we playing the guys that are like one of the better offensive teams?
Well, I mean, but I guess the bright side to Seattle was incredible music scene, right? Did you bring the acts in the clubhouse? Did it make you play?
I always had, you know, that was something that was kind of a really cool part of when I played in Cleveland. Embraced it too, you know, like all my teammates, you know, back then it was like the team hung out a ton. So we played cards and there was always get-togethers going on. And I was always the musician. And then, you know, I had the opportunity to like put out an album and it was like, you know, people always ask me that. They're like, what was the best night of your career? And I'm like, well, besides like, you know, the getting called up or my first home run with Pedro, by far the best night in my career was like in August in 05 when we had like a CD release party set up for after the game. And I wasn't playing that game. So, you know, I knew I was going to go in and come in for defense at the end of the game. And I remember, I think it was Wickman was our closer. He comes in and he had been so consistent all year. And it's just one of those freak games like blue pit, chopper through the middle. They tie it up and it's like 10-10. And I've got the CD release party at 10:30 and everybody like we've all been talking about it because it's the House of Blues and it's going to be cool or whatever. So I remember I look at the guys on the bench, you know, like laughing and I'm like, I'm about to win this thing because I got a concert to play. I started laughing, you know, and so I go up to hit and they bring in some left-handed guy out of the bullpen and I hit a walk-off to win it. And so
let's go.
I like a quick interview, no shower, and then when I show up at the House of Blues, a bunch of the fans just wanted the party to keep going, and so they went to the House of Blues, and the whole thing is like sold out, and there's like a line going like a block and a half down the street, and I'm like, what is going on? And I remember I'm just playing like 45 minutes acoustic, you know, and I walk in, and they like for 5 minutes standing ovation, everybody's going berserk, and it was the coolest night, you know. All the Indians came in, we had like kind of a after thing where we all got together and hung out with our wives, and it was really fun. So looking back, it's like, how do you get to like hit the walk-off and play a concert sold out, the House of Blues? It's like, it's tough. I'm sure if I was telling this story to those young guys when I was in player development, that same critic would be like, yeah, I'm not believing that story, but it's
There goes Ben touching home plate and then running in his jersey and cleats just straight down East 4th Street. Just kept going with the trot.
We had some great Coco Chris. I mean, we had so many good dudes on the team. So it was just like back. I couldn't have asked for a better team and to like run through that, that up and down roller coaster that it is and trying to play in Major League Baseball. It's not easy, and it's great when you got good teammates to be there with you.
So, Ben, we're going to let you get about your day, but we can't let you go without asking you a little bit here about what we got going on in Cleveland. Because you did spend the majority of your time in Major League Baseball with the Cleveland Indians, so you are a Clevelander honorary forever. But we got to talk about today's game a little bit. The 2024 Cleveland Guardians now, not the Indians, the Guardians. But, man, 54-31, they've got a comfortable lead right now in the Central, although that's a lot of time left. But this is a team, man, Ben, that I don't know how closely you follow, but I'm going to guess pretty closely. This is a team that a lot of people were picking to finish 3rd or 4th in the division, and they weren't sure how this season was going to go. And they've had to piece together the pitching, but the offense has been great. Just tell us what you think about this Cleveland Guardians team. Do they have the magic?
I think probably a lot of people were worried about, with Tito leaving and like who are they going to be? But it's amazing because when you've got like these guys that are like veterans that know how to do it, and then you bring in a talented manager to come in there with them. And then, like you said, they're always good pitching. They know how to develop pitching. They have always got young guys that are pulling up. I mean, it's great because that's what I'm so interested in. I'm always like researching and trying to understand this more is like, what makes teams great? Because you can have the really talented teams and they underperform. And then you can have the teams that are just a bunch of gritty guys that go after it and they win the World Series. And so I just feel like, it seems like has one of those kind of teams this year where they're going out there and they're doing what they got to do to win the games. And sometimes it's defense or it's pitching. And sometimes it's just like they got to outslug them. And I think that's like a characteristic of a great team. So I really wouldn't be surprised if they really make a good run at it this year.
And it looks like they're having fun playing baseball again too, right? Like last year, it just seemed like no one was having fun. It just seemed very dull. But it looks like they got a new approach now, and it's like they're just playing ball again. They're just kids.
Nothing better than when Cleveland is excited, like, and the team like team's playing good and people are coming out, like the energy. It's just like so fun to play in Cleveland. Like I just remember you have such an advantage against your opponents because the people are just ferociously like behind the team, and so I think they're going to be tough to beat. I'm going to be following them for sure.
Yeah, man, this has been awesome. It's been fun walking down memory lane with you. Like I said, it's hard to believe it was as long ago as it was. Watching you hit grand slam after grand slam down at what was then Jacobs Field. Man, Ben, it's been awesome catching up. It was great talking with you. And maybe we'll have a chance to catch up and do it again sometime.
Man, I'd love to be back. Thanks for having me.
How about Ben Broussard joining the Garage Beers podcast tonight? And man, oh man, just listen to Ben talking about Omar and Manny and Tommy and Bob Wickman. God, Bob Wickman, by the way, is a dream guest for the show for me. Only because I feel like he's just an ideal. I feel like if anybody knows anything about drinking beers in the garage, it's Bob freaking Wickman. I feel like that dude knows that like the back of his hand.
Just honestly, Mike, just drive around your neighborhood and look in any garage because I feel like Bob Wickman could just show up in any garage. Like he's that. He looks like that kind of guy. Like he could just be in anyone's garage drinking beers, and you would just not, and you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it.
Listen, huge shout out to former Cleveland Indian first baseman and outfielder and kind of utility player at the beginning of his year or beginning of his career, Ben Broussard, for hanging out with us. A lot of good stories.
He was great.
A lot of good stories. A lot of fun looking back at an era of baseball. And I talked about this on last week's show, Chad. Kind of this era that I think a lot of us look back at and go, oh, that was a tough stretch of baseball in Cleveland because we got so used to what happened in the 90s. But like that mid 2000s team was like, they'd have a down year and then they'd have an up year and then a down year and an up. They were pretty good. They were pretty good.
Yeah, it was more like 2008 to 2013. That was like the doldrums with like Shelley Duncan and like,
it was tough.
Yeah, that was more the doldrum era, right? Because 2002, 2003 they struggled, but like they started getting better in 2004. Had that great season in 2005 and 2006, and and then 2007 we all know what happened. So but it wasn't until after he was gone when we kind of hit that doldrum era.
Awesome. We got a couple comments rolling in. Sean, can you imagine having Eddie Murray as a hitting coach? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ben and being on a team. Bandito says, "How about I wouldn't care being opposite of Ben Broussard on a pickleball court?" Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. You'd be running. You'd be running for your life, Bandito.
Bandito, you'd be out of breath after the first volley. Bandito, you'd be out of breath after the first volley.
Again, shout out to Ben for coming on, and we've got some other exciting guests in the pipeline. That'll kind of be throwbacks, maybe not for specifically Cleveland baseball, but for any sports you might like. So stay tuned. And again, make sure you're following the Garage Beers on all the socials. All right, time for us to move on with the rest of the show. And as we kind of transition into the next parts of the show, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to do our asshole of the week, our little midsection segment here where we just call somebody out for being an asshole. And I'm going to lead it off because I almost want to get this over with. But I think some things are important enough to just have a quick thing about, even if you don't want to.
Okay.
So my asshole of the week this week, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I don't want to talk a lot about it.
I know where you're going with this.
My asshole of the week is anybody that would shoot anybody else because of political reasons or whatever. I mean, everything is so crazy,
right?
And and we're so stupid with our politics here that it's again, we make it out like we're on sports teams. You're on one side, you're on the other side. I cheer for my side, I cheer for the other side. I put a post on Twitter that said I could put a roll of toilet paper on the ballot with a D or R next to it, and 50 million people will vote for it just because it has the letter. I think anybody that knows me knows this. I don't like Donald Trump for 1 second. I will never vote for the guy. This isn't about that, though. Somebody shot at him. I don't care about the motive. I don't care who the person was. I don't care about any of that. If you take that to that level, and I know the guy's dead. The kid, he was 20 years old. He's dead. Still an asshole, though. Sure. And sure. if you ever have any thoughts, if politics makes you feel violent, you're an asshole. You're a total asshole. Stop doing that. Quit being an asshole. Let people have their own views. Argue with them because you should always stand up for what you believe, and that's fine. But if you're going to get violent over politics, you're a total asshole. I don't even remember what the kid's name was. I don't really give a shit what the kid's name was. He's no longer on the planet. I feel bad for his family, but he's an asshole. So that's my asshole of the week, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Sure.
I feel gross even saying it, but what an asshole.
My God. Sound like two bats mating in my backyard right now. Anyway,
you're gonna watch. All right, come back into.
Are you able to hear that?
Don't get too horned up.
It might be two raccoons mating. I gotta go investigate.
Whatever's mating in your backyard, you need to tone the horn down.
This is a Garage Beers TikTok. I am
horn down, buddy.
I am so erect right. Anyway,
no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to kind of piggyback off that, my asshole is going to be the country. I just hate where the country's at right now. That's it. Move on.
Yeah, all right, we're moving on.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Hey, everybody, quit being assholes.
Yeah.
Secondary asshole. Asshole. Well, we're going to talk. Sean just put one in the comments, but we're going to talk about that.
Okay. All right.
Secondary asshole. I just was down. Again, I told you I was in Hocking Hills. I was there for a work meeting.
Did you bring the gold bond? Because I got to imagine with how humid it was up here, it's got to be like even worse.
It was 97 and humid down there. It was wild. You know what I did this morning, by the way? 6 a.m. I was on the Old Man Cave Trail. I did a 4.5 mile hike through the Old Man Cave Trail this morning.
Jesus, with you being 2 steps away from cirrhosis, you got to be like,
oh, shut the fuck up. No, it's so beautiful down there. We had a great time. But secondary asshole of the week, our friend of the show here and a good buddy of mine, Joe Braun. You'll see him in the comments a good bit on a lot of our shows. He works for Finley Brewing Company. And one of my coworkers and Joe are like best friends. So Joe sent my coworker with Finley Brewing Company beers. I was going to have it on the show tonight. My coworker just left him in his trunk and then went home with him. So he's an asshole. Kyle, total asshole. And I want Joe to make sure he sees that.
Right.
All right. Let's get on with the next part. Fucking cirrhosis, you big dick. Let's get on to the next part of the show. And we got a few things we want to talk about. We got the All-Star game going on right now, and some Cleveland Guardians are making moves. We got Stephen Kwan has scored a run in this game.
Yeah.
How about the American League was down 3-0 after a bomb that Shohei Ohtani hit.
Yeah.
3-run homer.
Yeah.
But Juan Soto hit a 2-run double. Stephen Kwan scored on. And how about our boy David Fry making an impact? His first at bat as an All-Star. First at bat as an All-Star is an RBI single that scored Soto after his double. And some Guardians are making impacts at the All-Star game. Yeah, man. This is pretty cool to watch, I got to say. Especially Kwan being the leadoff hitter, getting the start in left field in the All-Star game for his first All-Star game appearance.
Yeah.
Hosey, I mean, just obviously going to be the mainstay at third base. David Fry making an impact. I'm excited to see Clase. Like, just this has just been so much fun to watch.
Honestly, it's like the guy you feel I mean, at least the guy I feel the best for. I mean, I feel good for everybody, for all the Guardians that are in this All-Star game, but the guy I feel the best for is David Fry, just because it's the best story, right? This guy was as late of a bloomer as late bloomers get in the MLB, and he's just having a kick-ass year, and who knows? Who knows if it's even sustainable for the rest of this year? He might even be great for this year and fall off the next year. But, like, let's just ride this high, this David Fry high for the rest of the year. And it's you feel good for a guy like that, right? If he has one good year out of his major league career, at least he has something to talk about for the rest of his life. He made an All-Star game, right? He's playing incredible for the Central Division and World Series contending Cleveland Guardians. Like I don't know, it's the feel good story for of the Cleveland Guardians season for me. That's what I think.
Man, I'm trying to look. Naylor is in the game. He's 0 for 1 now. So
yeah,
Naylor
he just rounded out.
Naylor has entered the game, but the American League All-Stars up 5-3. Yeah, listen.
I got scared for a second because are you watching it at all?
No, I'm not. I'm not watching it because Joey got me real nervous because I got this TV behind me.
Yeah.
And I always thought like I'd have something playing in the background.
Yeah.
But Joey got me nervous. Like, oh, we can't be on the podcast and you having something up there. And I'm like, oh, well, then I can't.
Okay. I was nervous, but thankfully he's all right. But Naylor got his ankle stepped on a ground out to first base. So I was like, but he's okay though. He is okay. He just grounded out to first as well.
When it comes to injuries, Naylor, like weird things,
Yeah.
Naylor and there's two athletes in Cleveland, Naylor and Darius Garland.
Right.
Garland is always just taking shots to the face, and Naylor's like getting stepped on and like his ankles getting rolled. Stop touching these dudes.
Right. Yeah. No, but he looked at the guy and he was like, yeah, I'm all right. Like, what the fuck did you do that for? I'm all right, though.
No, I do like this comment from Zook. Hope this game can restart David Fry. Yeah, listen.
Yeah.
Fry's going through, and I want to say this about the Guardians, too. While we're just talking about the Guardians, July hasn't been great for the Guardians so far. They haven't played great ball. I think they went into the All-Star break 4-6 in their last 10 games.
And and that's fine.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
Teams go through, like, I just think people watch too much football is what it is, Chad.
Yeah.
I think people watch too much football where, again, in football, every play and every game of the season means so much. When you only play 18 games or 17 games in a season, every game means so damn much that you have to like ride on everything. And if your team goes on a little losing streak, you're kind of screwed. Right. And there's nothing you can do. I think we need to step away from football for a minute. The Guardians have had.
When you're talking about the Guardians, you have to. You absolutely have to.
they've had a little bit of a rough month of July, but like I go on Twitter and people are like, oh God, oh, the Guardians are starting to slide. Oh no, oh man. I just saw a thing that was like, here's why the Twins will overcome the Guardians. And they might, they could take a slide, but like,
we reiterate this over and over again.
I know.
You just have to ride the ebbs and flows of a baseball season. You just have to.
62 games.
Yeah, we're on game. What are they? 58 and 37. You got to ride. It's game 95. I'll worry about how the Guardians are playing at game 140. Right.
Even in the scope of like, take it back to that football thing, right? Because in football there's 17 games.
Right.
Even in the scope of series, if you say the average series, which it is 3 games.
Sure.
162 divided by 3 is what, 54? So even the series don't matter as much as a single game.
Right.
So just like pull it back, relax. The Guardians are going to get hot again.
Right.
And they're probably going to have another cold stretch.
If
there's still a long season left.
Yeah, if they're playing this way, if they're still cold at the end of August, sure, then be worried. Right?
And listen,
sure.
That comment, this is not directed at Zook.
No, not directed at Zook at all.
Game can restart Fry, because Fry has been kind of cold lately.
Right.
And I agree with Zook. I hope this game can kind of, all right, cool. Not only was I an all-star, but I made an impact at the all-star game. That's got to be big for a dude's confidence. I agree with Zook.
Sure.
But just let's ride those ebbs and flows. Let's ride.
We were talking in general, Zook. Nothing against you, okay? Nothing against you.
But don't say that shit anymore. No.
Yeah. If you ever say it again, we'll fucking just exclude you from the show.
Yes. I love it. All right, so let's talk real quick. Last night, 2 things. The All-Star game. Or, I'm sorry, the Home Run Derby. And let's talk about what happened at the beginning of the Home Run Derby, because I take tremendous pride. In being able to tell people that I was at the NBA All-Star game at the Staples Center, or whatever the hell it's called at this point, when Fergie gave that rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Well, and you almost ran her over with your car, so you have a special connection to Fergie.
Well, that was back in 2003, maybe.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, me and Fergie were tight.
If she had given that rendition, I would have ran her over with your car.
Oh boy. I take great pride, and I tell people all the time, if you thought it was funny on TV, it was so much funnier in the arena. It was so loud, the laughter in the arena. But last night, before the Home Run Derby, here comes Ingrid Andress, who I've never heard of before.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
I don't know her songs either.
I don't know who this is, but she is a singer. Like, she actually
she puts out albums. Like, that's the kind of singer she is. She puts out albums.
She tries to make money by singing songs.
Right.
And Ingrid Andress came out last night. And now we'll get to what came out today, because some news came out about it today. But last night, if we're just putting things in the scope of last night, Ingrid Andress went out last night and performed the national anthem the exact same way I would have. If I would have performed the national anthem, it would have sounded like that.
Yeah. Yep.
What happened? We're all sitting there. I don't know. Did you watch it as it happened, Chad?
I didn't watch it as it happened, but I did watch the performance. And it was bad, but
But what?
But I thought Fergie's was worse. I thought Fergie's was worse than
Listen, here's what I thought. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, maybe we're going to put this in the realm of Roseanne's national anthem. But that was just meant to be funny. To me, Roseanne's isn't one of the worst national anthems.
Well, because Roseanne is also not a singer. Roseanne is also not a singer.
Yeah. Carl Lewis, his national anthem was terrible, and he was trying to sing, but he's not a singer.
Right.
So, those are in different categories to me. But, you can argue this one and Fergie all you want, and that's fine. But, how do you go out? When she hit that note on Land of the Free,
it was bad.
And it was
it was
free.
Real bad.
And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Oh boy. So then it comes out today. Did you see what she said today?
Yeah, that she's drunk. That she was
just
drunk
off her ass.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether that's to save face or that's an actual problem. I really don't, because I have no idea who Ingrid Andress is.
Right,
I have no
right.
idea.
Never even heard of this person before.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, we condone drinking beers on the Garage Beers podcast.
Of course we do.
We condone having a good time. We don't condone getting so hammered that you as a singer forget how to sing. We don't condone that.
I think
if you have to sing. Maybe on certain nights where you don't have to sing, go for it. But
I think what put me over the edge with this, like why I thought Fergie's was worse, was because Fergie at the end goes, "Let's play some basketball." Like she knew she nailed it. Like she felt like she nailed it. Ingrid Andress was like, "Brave." Okay, goodbye.
yeah. Fergie really thought she put an artistic twist on the anthem. And did she? It was
jazzy, bluesy.
An artistic twist it was.
Yeah.
But then it comes out again. Comes out that Ingrid Andress, I keep having to look at her name because again, I've never heard of her before.
Yeah.
It turns out that she was just so shit-faced that she forgot how to sing. And what the hell? Isn't that backwards? Don't most people kind of get better at singing when they get shit-faced? Like, there's me.
In their own minds, they do.
I can't sing a lick, but man, I'll go out there and hit up a karaoke bar if you give me enough drinks, and it'll be all right. It'll be. Ingrid forgot how to sing. She was so smashed. Who's running the show in Texas that they didn't look at her and go, "Ma'am, you clearly have forgotten how to sing.
Why did you can't go out there. Old man drop your glasses?
Because you have to at that point. You have. I'm good at it too.
To her credit, like in your drunk mind, you think like whatever you do sing is amazing.
This is such a good point. Bandito puts.
Yeah.
Brown's Bandito again. I don't know if we've ever said who he is, so maybe I'm not going to say it. But I golf with him a good bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you have said who he is.
Yeah, it's Joey's dad. It's my father-in-law.
Yeah, for sure.
So Brown's Bandito, we golf a good bit when we can, when we're allowed.
Okay.
Front nine, before the beers have kicked in.
Like, does he sing the national anthem?
No. But this is what I'm getting at. He's a moderately okay golfer on the front nine. Like, just he'll hit a couple good shots, he'll hit a couple bad shots, and that's what it is on the front nine. The beers kick in at about hole 10. When the beers kick in, the dude could play on the PGA Tour.
But is he out of breath?
No, well, if he was playing pickleball with Ben Broussard, he would be. But when the beers kick in, the dude turns into freaking Ernie Els, or he just turns into like a pro. He turns into John Daly, and like every ball is just dead down the middle, and it's right where he wants it to go.
I'm not as thick as you drunk I am.
He's the opposite of Andress. He's the opposite of Ingrid Andress when it comes to her ability to sing drunk. She's Oppo Bandito. So a very entertaining start to the night last night, and then a really entertaining evening of Home Run Derby. I like how they just keep kind of tweaking the Home Run Derby and making it entertaining, right? So the first round was just the 4 dudes that hit the most home runs are going to advance, and then it's going to turn into a tournament. And I thought that was cool.
Okay.
And our boy Hosey, man, our boy Hosey I think it was just his second Home Run Derby. I know he did the one in LA a couple of years ago. Was that 22, I think?
Yes.
Our boy Hosey, and he didn't do well in that one. No. This one, man, the first round, 21 bombs in the first round. He had the most home runs of anybody in the first round.
And LA has a short porch, right? No, that's in left field that they have a short porch, right?
Well, but in 22, he batted right-handed.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And now yesterday he hit left-handed, and he goes 21 bombs in the first round.
He's always been better from the left side anyway.
Oh, yeah. He tied Alex Boehm for the most home runs in the first round. So he moves on along with Bobby Witt Jr., obviously Boehm, as I just said, and Teoscar Hernandez, who plays out in L.A. And then it ends, because I'll tell you what, man, Bobby Witt was fun to watch. I like Bobby Witt a lot. I know he's a divisional guy. I know he plays for the Royals. I've got no hate for the Royals. And Bobby Witt he's fun to watch in regular baseball, and he was fun to watch last night. He was hitting some bombs. He took out Hosey. Hosey only hit 12 homers in the second round, but a good showing for Hosey to get out of the first round. I think it's the first time in a minute a Cleveland baseball player's made some kind of advancement in the Derby, right? Am I missing anybody?
No,
I know when the Derby was here, Carlos Santana was in it, and he had like 4 total home runs.
I was going to say, I think the last Indian or Guardian to Cleveland baseball player to advance was probably Albert Bell or Tommy, one of the two.
I don't remember. Yeah. But it did bring up, because every time it happens, Cleveland fans do cool things, and it brought up a lot of cool old videos of Albert Bell versus Frank Thomas. The last time the All-Star game was in Texas at the old ballpark in Arlington, and man, that was a great home run derby. But then it comes down to it. Here's the other thing I found fascinating about last night, because Teoscar Hernandez beats Bobby Witt in like a nail biter. He wins by 1 in the last round. I thought it was incredibly hard to believe, but Teoscar Hernandez, the first ever LA Dodger to win the home run derby. Are you there? What are you doing?
Huh? What
are you doing?
No, I'm here.
Jump into the show, bud.
Yeah, I'm here.
That's just wild to me, right? You would think of all the great Dodgers that have ever played baseball, one of them would have won the Derby at some point.
You would think, but like, have any of them really been like power hitters? Right? Like when you think of the Dodgers, like who have been the best, like Kirk Gibson? Like, was that the last like great like Dodger power hitter? When I think of the Dodgers, I just think of kind of good all around teams. I don't think of like pure home run hitters.
Didn't Matt Kemp hit like 50 bombs one year?
Yeah, just 1 year though.
I think he had a couple good years.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
I forgot about Matt Kemp.
You don't think of like, the Cardinals had Pujols or McGuire. The Cubs have had
that's what I'm saying.
Sosa or Rizzo. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, that's right. Even Cleveland, Tomey and Hafner and that kind of crew.
Yeah. I don't think of like true power hitters when I think of Dodgers.
That's a good point. It's a good point. I was just surprised.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, I just wanted to give a shout out to Hosey. Here you go. Sean is hooking us up. He says Tomey, he thinks, lost in the finals in 98 to Griffey.
Oh, yeah.
98, where was it? Was 98 Boston?
Yeah,
or was
I
that
think so.
Baltimore?
It was Baltimore, because that's the year Griffey hit the building.
Oh, yeah, like halfway up the building. It was wild.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, again, shout out to Hosey for just putting on a show in the first round, giving everybody something to cheer about, advancing and representing the Guardians in the home run derby. And shout out to the boys playing tonight. Again, Stephen Kwan, his night was over. He had 2 at-bats. He walked and scored a run, and then he was 0 for 1 in his other at-bat. Hosey, I think, just went 0 for 2. And David Fry, 1 for 2, RBI single. Naylor's had 1 at-bat, but it's been a hell of a showing. And I'm going to guess if this gets to a save situation, Emmanuel Clase is I would imagine he is the closer for the American League, right?
I got to imagine
he's the best closer in baseball this year.
Yeah, like that. Or if he doesn't come in the 8th inning, he's definitely coming in the 9th. He's coming into one of these 2 innings for sure.
He's got to be the closer.
Yeah,
he's got to
100%.
He's the best closer in baseball.
Did you see that? Speaking of which, did you see that ESPN personality? I forget his name now, but he made the case for Emmanuel Clase winning the Cy Young.
Yeah, and he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong at all.
Especially when you look at what the pitchers are doing. Like nobody's like having a crazy year.
Right.
So far. Now, obviously that can change, but like this is what's his face won the Cy Young. Didn't Gagne win it for the Dodgers as a closer?
Eric Gagne, yeah.
I mean,
Mr.
It's right there. It's right there.
He had the Eric Plunk glasses. I remember.
Oh yeah, the Plunks. I love the Plunks. Okay. So again, shout out to the boys. All-Star game still going on. Again, American League still up 5-3 right now. If any of the Guardians do anything cool before we end this show, then we'll let you know. But otherwise, just a couple other things to talk about. We do want to move on to I want to talk a little football because kind of an interesting little wrinkle happened. And God, I wish Brad Ward was still here, but I think we're past his bedtime. No,
he didn't drink enough Cokes. He didn't have enough caffeine to stay up.
Brad's taking random shots. I'm just joking with him. But I would love for him to be here to hear this part of the conversation, because in the football world, and this could involve the Browns, honestly, the way things are right now. How about Brandon Ayuk asks for a trade, like officially requests a trade from the San Francisco 49ers today?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is just so shitty. He doesn't even deserve. That's just for Brad. Sorry, that was for Brad.
Yeah. Brad will wake up. Brad, if he is asleep, he will wake up and come tear up our comments.
No, I mean, I don't know. This seems to have been festering for so long that it's just like it seemed like it was inevitable. It just seemed like it was, it's for whatever reason that the 49ers just didn't want to pay him what he thought he was worth, and it's just come to a point where requesting a trade. So, I mean, if I'm the Browns. Sure, I do my due diligence. Sure, I mean Brandon Ayuk's a talented wide receiver, but I mean I'm certainly not giving up the farm for a Brandon Ayuk.
No, but again, knowing these are two teams that are ready to compete this year, right?
Right.
If it's the Browns have got their own situation going on with Amari Cooper,
sure,
and he still hasn't signed his extension, and he's looking for it. He wants it,
right.
And now you got Ayuk out there. Like, if it came down to it, now, again, Amari Cooper's older.
Sure.
If it came down to it and it was like, if the 49ers were like, oh, yeah, we'll give you Ayuk for Amari Cooper and a second rounder.
I mean, if it was like that, sure. Yeah, absolutely. But if it was anything crazy, then I would be a little hesitant.
Again, I'm not the biggest Brandon Ayuk fan.
No, I'm not either. I'm not.
I also think, I think he's 26?
Well, and I understand what he's doing when he's holding out for a contract, right? You make your money when you can. It's kind of like the Josh Cribbs situation. You had one or two good years, and you're trying to cash in. I get what Brandon Ayuk is trying to do, but
I'm not the biggest fan. I'm not convinced that he's a true number one receiver.
Sure, right.
I think again, for me, when you're on a team with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and all that. I've always felt Deebo was the real number one receiver on that team. However, you can't argue too much with his numbers, and they've been good for a while now.
Listen, for the right deal, I would take Ayuk for sure. And for the right deal, I would take him.
If the Browns are sitting there going, well, we're a little hesitant to pay a guy that's a little bit older in Amari Cooper,
right?
What he wants to get paid,
right?
We'd rather take money and give it to Brandon Ayuk at 26. I could get that. I could understand that. Yeah, so it's interesting, man. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like I said, that's my biggest kind of hook into this thing, right? Like depending on the deal, right? It all depends on the deal whether I would be happy or whether I'd be upset if we trade for Brandon Ayuk.
But it's it's interesting because Brandon Ayuk's looking for I think 30 mil. So now you got to pay Brandon Ayuk 30 mil. So now we're talking about, okay, which guy's gonna not gonna be on the team very long because of that, right?
Right.
I know, we got reporting saying JOK is looking for money. You got these other guys that are gonna be looking for money. Martin Emerson's gonna be looking for money soon, and Grant Delpit, and these guys are gonna be looking for money soon. So, if you're gonna dedicate 30 mil to Brandon Ayuk, one of these, it's the beautiful thing about having a really good football team.
That's what we talked about. Like when you have a good football team, these are good problems to have.
Yeah, good football teams lose good players.
Yeah. Yep.
Because good players deserve to get paid, and the good football teams can't always pay them.
Right.
So yeah, it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, it's all speculation right now, but it'd be real interesting to see if the Browns get their, throw their name in the hat for Brandon Ayuk, and if they're willing to say, hey, let's work out something for Amari Cooper. I love Amari Cooper. I still have a little more faith in Amari Cooper than I do in Brandon Ayuk. I know people hate that, but I do have that little bit more faith. But if the Browns want to pay Ayuk, I would understand that too. So it'll be interesting. It'll be a fun little thing to watch here, Chad.
No, it will. Again, it would just all depend on the deal, whether I would be happy or whether I would be upset about it. I'm not going to sit here and get mad over trading for Brandon Ayuk because he is a very talented receiver. And obviously I would love to have him on my team, but not at the expense of too much, right? Not at the expense of too much, but yeah, obviously I think, Amari would have to be a part of the deal. But yeah, it would all depend on the deal, whether I would be happy or whether I'd be upset about it. And, if you're going to pay him $30 million a year, like he wants, it would just be whatever happens after it would be what happens in the trickle down effect from trading for Brandon Ayuk, whether I would be happy or upset about it.
Yeah. But again, it's an interesting little dichotomy happening in the NFL right now with two teams and their number one receivers or their most productive receivers are both kind of in contract situations. Ayuk officially asking for the trade. Now, again, that doesn't mean he's getting traded either. A lot of times these dudes ask for trades their agents are using that as a pressure point and leverage to try to get them the money with that team. So there's also a chance that the 49ers just pay him. But if they trade him, the Browns are a very, in my opinion, a very realistic destination for the dude. It just makes sense. The things line up. So it'll be interesting to watch. It'll be interesting. Okay.
Well, can you imagine? It's an Ayuk, Judy, and Njoku. Would you be happy with that as your as your three top weapons for the next 3 years, 4 years? Would you be happy with that? Yeah.
Of course I would. Of course I would. Especially if Brandon Ayuk were to come out next year and do what he did last year and just completely make me look like an idiot and be like, of course I'm a number one guy. And I'm always willing to eat a little crow. That's fine.
Yeah.
Then it'd be great. It'd be great.
Prove me wrong, Brandon.
It'd be great. Okay, Chad, last thing I want to get to before we get to our cheers of the week, and I want you to maybe educate even me at this point, educate me and the people. But I want to go to our friends over at the Columbus Blue Jackets a little bit because finally it seems Aaron Portzline has given us what seems to just be a little bit of clarity on the coaching situation and the coaching search, which has gone on for a bit. Again, we've got these teams that we cover. The Cleveland Cavaliers took a minute to finally land on Kenny Atkinson as their head coach, which again, I don't have a problem with. They're doing their due diligence and all that. Yeah. But the Blue Jackets have taken a while to kind of narrow this coaching search down. And it appears, it doesn't appear, it is, I think, confirmed. They are flying two people in. I think it happened today, or at least one of them today. Two coaches appear to be the finalists for the Columbus Blue Jackets head coaching vacancy. And those two coaches are Dean Evison and Jay Woodcroft. So, Chad, man, tell me what you know about Dean Evison and Jay Woodcroft.
Well, both of these guys have plenty of experience in the NHL. So, and that is kind of the number one caveat, the number one key for me that in the next Blue Jackets coach that I wanted was experience. Someone who has ran an NHL locker room, someone who knows what it's like to be in an NHL locker room, someone who can read the room, someone who can know, when a guy needs a kick in the ass and when a guy needs a hug saying, we need you. These two coaches, Dean Evison and Jay Woodcroft, are those types of guys. They're two guys that have seen success at the NHL level. Now, obviously, it depends on your version of success, but these are two guys that have been to the playoffs. Dean Evison with the Minnesota Wild and Jay Woodcroft with the Edmonton Oilers. So these are two guys that know how to run a locker room, how to run a program, how to run a team, how to manage players, how to manage egos. So it is, either one of these two guys, I think would be a nice choice, right? And like Mark Sheik said a couple of weeks ago, a boring choice, right? These are two guys that don't have like that big personality, right? Of coaches that, some of the prima donnas have or some of the high profile names have. They don't have that. These are just two boring coaches, but coaches that know how to get the most out of their players, right? Yeah, things didn't work out with Dean Evason in Minnesota, but Dean Evason kind of got a raw deal, right? He got fired after starting 5-10 with Minnesota, coming off of a 60 win season, right? Or excuse me, no, it is a 56 win season in Minnesota, right? Jay Woodcroft has had Connor McDavid. He's been to the playoffs. He's been to the second round of the playoffs, right? He knows. They know, both of these coaches know what it's like to get to the playoffs. They know how to develop young talent. They know how to, like I say, get the most out of their players. So either one of these coaches, I think, are a sufficient choice if these are the final two for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I expect a new head coach to be named here before the end of next week, because if you look at if you pay attention to the headlines at all, Don Waddell said, no, this isn't going to carry over into August. So we will have a head coach here before the end of the month. And I think Jay Woodcroft or Dean Evason, I don't have a preference over the two because they're both kind of the same coach. But yeah, I expect either one of these two to be named the head coach here shortly, at least within the next few days. Muted, Mike.
I'm muted because I was trying to do something. Here's what I was going to ask you, because and you just hit on it a little bit there, but is there like a common bond? Is there what about those two guys do you think are so attractive to this new regime for the Blue Jackets? What do those guys, if you say they're very similar, so what is the style and what is the similarity that you think makes them so attractive to the Jackets?
I think the style is development. I think they've worked with a lot of young talent. These guys have a lot of experience in the AHL and the WHL and working with a lot of young talented guys, and also working with a bunch of vets. I mean, look, again, Jay Woodcroft, it doesn't get any better than Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So if you can get the most out of them, if you can get those guys to buy in, because really systems don't change a whole lot from head coach to head coach in the NHL. It's just a matter of how you get these guys to buy in, how you get these guys to, like each other, communicate with you. And clearly these guys have been very good. Dean and Jay have been very good at that because, like I said, for the years that they have spent in the NHL, they have had success. They've had terrific seasons, terrific regular seasons. And for a team like Columbus, who still has a couple of factors in play, still have some stipulations to see if those work out, to see if they actually make the playoffs, for a team that's not ready yet to make the playoffs, I think that's exactly the type of coach that you need. A coach that could, again, get you to buy in, get you motivated. And that's exactly what Jay and Dean bring to the table. It's not a first-time head coach where he's still trying to figure things out, and he's probably going to try to figure things out throughout the entire year. Jay and Dean have plenty of experience. They know what's going on. They know their players. Well, they're going to know their players if one of them's named Columbus, or one named to the Columbus job. They're going to know their players very well. And I think that it's either one is going to bode well for this Blue Jacket hockey team.
Well, again, Dean Evason, Jay Woodcroft are the two finalists for the Columbus job. So again, unless something weird happens, it does sound like one of those two are going to be the next head coach of the Jackets. And again, just continued kind of revamping of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and an experienced coach might just be kind of that last thing that they needed to push them into the direction of really being a competitive hockey team, because a lot of the pieces are there. And again, there's going to be a lot more young guys that come up and have to contribute, especially defensively. Like David Jiricek's got to be ready to go next year. Some of these guys got to come up and really contribute. But if they can get contributions out of the young guys, and the vets continue to just play well like the vets do, this is a Blue Jackets team that could turn around pretty quick if that situation is right. Zook has a question, Chad. I'm going to let you take it in the comments. What did you think of the McClellan stuff?
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would have liked Todd as well because he also has a reputation for developing young players. But he was actually in Edmonton from that transition from like bad to Connor McDavid. So he was there for that. So I would have liked Todd McClellan, but it's kind of surprising to me that they didn't offer him a contract. But yeah, I don't know. Apparently Don likes Jay and Dean better. I don't know. Something happened in there that we don't know about that turned Don off to Todd. And I don't know if we'll ever find that out. Maybe we will. But yeah, something happened in this process that just completely turned Don off to Todd. So yeah, beyond that, I don't really know much of what happened. But yeah, I would have liked Todd to be here. But yeah, that looks like that's not going to happen.
Well, again, it sounds like we're going to have news on the Blue Jackets and who they hire as their next head coach. Really feels like any day at this point.
Yeah.
So that's all exciting. Again, so we've talked about the All-Star game in baseball today, which again, right now the American League is leading 5-3 in the bottom of the eighth. I think our boy David Fry is on deck for his third at bat, unless they replace him with somebody. But they've been making impacts. The Guardians have been making impacts all over the place. We talked about the NFL and the Brandon Ayuk situation, how that could impact the Browns. And we had a great conversation with former Cleveland Indians first baseman / kind of utility guy, Ben Broussard, who was just amazing. Ben Broussard was awesome. Mr. Grand Slam himself. So lots of fun here tonight on the show. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We're going to go to our last segment of the night, which is our 3 cheers of the week, or 2 cheers because Joey's not here. So Joe gets a reverse cheers, asshole of the week, anytime he's not here, right?
Such an asshole.
Is Joe just asshole of the week anytime he's not here?
Probably. Yeah, that's probably a good one.
Fair. So we're going to do our 2 cheers this week. I let us off with the asshole of the week. So Chad, why don't you lead us off with cheers of the week?
Man, my cheers of the week goes to the Guardians here, man.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes to the Guardians. I mean, to Stephen Kwan, Josh Naylor, David Fry, all first-time All-Stars. You've had a great first half of the year, boys. Just keep going. Great job.
I love it. Yeah, they're so much fun. They are. Again, it reminds you a good bit of maybe the 2022 team, but I think they're a little bit more deep and a little more talented than that team was.
Yeah.
Well, offensively, I think they are. The pitching, we got to get that figured out.
Right.
They remind you maybe a little bit of that 2007 team.
Right.
Just all the young guys kind of came together at the right time. And, man, they had just that good mix of vets and young guys.
Right.
Guardians are awesome. So great cheers. My cheer of the week goes out to, and this is one of the most fun nights I have had in forever. My cheer of the week goes out to Nathan Zagura, last week's guest.
Oh, yeah.
And to Absolute Intense Wrestling, which is a very well-respected, smaller wrestling promotion here in Cleveland, based out of Cleveland. AIW Absolution 17 happened on Saturday night. And I went with my buddy Kurt, and I took my son Patrick, and the 3 of us went down there to the Masonic Temple, and holy shit, we had the best time. I'm gonna play a couple videos. I'm gonna play a couple videos. I'm gonna play a couple videos. I'm gonna start with Nathan. And I will say this: when we got there, Nathan, a lot of the wrestlers at these smaller shows like sit out at tables and they sell their merch and they take pictures with fans and all that. So the minute we walk in, there's Nathan hanging at his table, talking to fans. He signs a picture for Patrick and just gives it to him for free, even though he was selling them. I bought a shirt because I wanted to contribute to the cause. But what a great dude. Nathan and I got a chance to hang out and talk for a little bit before he had his wrestling debut. And here's just a little snippet. Nathan Zagura was pumped up out there. His wrestling debut. Check it out. Man, Segura was out there just blasting dudes. Nathan Segura and his team got the win over wrestling legend Jeff Jarrett and his squad. And oh my God, we had a blast. We had a blast. I also, Chad, I included one other video. There was a ladder match.
Yeah.
And
I did see that on Twitter.
I wanted to include this in the show because it was amazing. Check out this bump. I don't remember who these two guys were, but check out this bump from the ladder match. Off the top of a ladder, through a ladder. It was awesome. The crowd was great. And Nathan Segura, man, just it was cool to actually get to talk to him in person. We've talked to him on the show a couple times, but he was all jazzed up. He was nervous as all get out before the show. Sure. He went out, he put on a great show. He got the win for the city of Cleveland. Jeff Jarrett did a great job just being a heel. He came out and just talked all shit about Cleveland. Just dumped on the city for a while. Everybody got pissed. And then Nathan Segura beat him the hell up. So it was great. It was a great time, a great show. So shout out to Nathan. Shout out to AIW for a really fun time.
All right. Sweet.
That was it. That was it.
Sweet.
We got to go. I don't know. Next one. We got to go.
Yeah, no, I promised my son we're going to go to the next one.
You let me know when. Well, maybe not the next one, but one of these ones.
I mean, we're going to go to one soon, for sure.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it. That is going to do it for us here on Garage Beers, episode 221. The last order of business for us is just to do our thank yous. Our first thank you goes out to Ben Broussard. Ben Broussard comes on with us, former Cleveland Indian, talking all kinds of baseball, talking nostalgia. We had a great time with Ben Broussard. His stories were amazing. He's a great dude. So big shout out to Ben Broussard for coming on with us. Our next shout out goes to our sponsor tonight, which was the Cleveland Tint Company. Again, go to clevelandtint.com. Call my buddy Paulie for any residential, commercial, or automobile window tinting needs. Get over to the Cleveland Tint Company and make sure that happens. With that lifetime warranty, you can't go wrong with the Cleveland Tint Company. We're going to say thanks to the OBR for hosting us. The Orange and Brown Report, again, they are just coming into their season right now. TheOBR.com, all the socials. Make sure you are following. Make sure you're subscribed. Pay the money. It's worth it. Pay the money to the OBR, and you will not regret it. All the best Browns coverage in Cleveland and us happens on the OBR. And our last, but our biggest thank you goes out to all of you, whether you joined us live here tonight. The comments were great. We had a whole bunch of in here for the majority of the show. So shout out to you guys, whether you watch this on Twitter, X, whatever, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you watched us tonight. Shout out to you for joining us live. If you couldn't make it live, but you're either listening to us on Apple or Spotify, or you're watching us on demand, shout out to you as well. We appreciate the support. And again, the biggest way this podcast is going to keep growing is by you just spreading the word. So tell your friends, tell your family, come hang out with the dudes on Garage Beers, because it's guaranteed they're going to have a good time. That's going to do it for episode 221 for Joey, who wasn't even here, but go follow him anyways at Garage Beers Joe. For Chad on the east side of Cleveland at Garage Beers Chad, I am Michael Keefe at Garage Beers Mike. We will see you next week for episode 222. In the meantime, go follow the show at The Garage Beers everywhere, and we will see you next week. Thanks again, everybody, and cheers.